Welcome to another electrifying FXL episode in our M&A in the Trade series, where we explore the dynamic and ever-evolving world of mergers and acquisitions within the field services industry. And today, we're putting the home services vertical under the microscope, uncovering the secrets behind one of the most essential yet often overlooked sectors that keep our homes safe, efficient, and beautiful. From fixing a leaky roof to installing the latest smart home technology, home services encompass a wide range of services aimed at maintaining, repairing, and improving residential properties. And with the home services industry growing at an astonishing rate, reaching a whopping $700 billion in the US alone, the opportunities for mergers and acquisitions are endless. And in today's episode, we'll dissect the trends, the numbers, and the driving forces behind this booming industry. And we'll explore how companies are positioning themselves to capitalize on this growth and introduce you to some of the major players making waves with strategic acquisitions. And as always, joining me in this series is my co-host 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗦, who just announced the launch of a new private equity platform in the home services industry, RAFTRx. Ginner, how are you doing today?
Good. A couple of fun things. I'm matching 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗦 with my readers today. In case people are wondering if I'm thinking I wore glasses for like 30 years of my life, so I decided to match your energy with some readers today. But more importantly, we're going to talk home services, and
yes.
I want to give, for those of you who don't know, we're recording this episode while 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦 and team are going through a typhoon there in the islands of the Philippines. So some of that's going to be pertinent to our discussion. More importantly, 𝗧𝗠𝗘, hope you and your family and your team are all safe.
Yes, thank you. With God's grace, we're all safe. We just checked on our team, and everyone is safe and sound. And as you mentioned, these climate change is only bringing more and more attention to the home services industry. And I'm excited to unpack the home services vertical together, especially that you've just made the transition to it, coming from commercial and industrial to residential, and you've actually launched a new platform. So maybe give us a bit of background, 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦, on your thought process for tackling this industry, and tell us about the new platform you've just launched.
Yeah, so platform's name is RAFTRx, no E and an X at the end. So if you're looking me up online, we are we work on commercial exteriors, mainly roofing currently, and residential applications. We do a bit of light commercial. I want to give our commercial team a little credit so they don't think I'm ignoring them if they listen to this. But primarily we focus on residential, and really the working thesis there is kind of very simple for me. And part of the reason I joined, everybody wants to be in a home or is in a home. It's a tremendous investment for most of us, right? One we care very dearly about. And, the other piece is the people that live in that home, your kids, your loved ones, your spouse, your parents, whatever the mix of that is for you are really important. The last thing you want is to go up to a room and see water leaking somewhere, as an example. Right. And have to articulate, there's a vulnerability as a human being you don't want when you're in a home. So, that home services space for me, which is roofing in my case primarily today, and more evolving to exteriors over time, is, I just think, just an important space for us, both, practically from an investment standpoint and, socially, just because you have people you love living in those homes.
Absolutely, and it's a booming industry. So if we look at some of the market stats we've combined, close to $700 billion in total addressable market, and that's 2022. And it's been also growing globally, especially in Asia Pacific, double-digit rate, compounding growth year over year. Employing over 5 million people in the US, 5 million people. That's huge. Where there are 16 jobs finished every second. So we've been 5 minutes into this podcast, and probably there's been hundreds of jobs finished, just in the past 5 minutes. So it's a growing industry, like you mentioned, Giner, and one of really the oldest industries, I would say. And so,
one thing you've seen about that is there's kind of this intersection of things that are happening, which is causing industry to accelerate too, right? So, everyone knows homes are getting more expensive across the globe, right?
Yep.
Everyone knows interest rates are getting higher because you got to get loans to buy the home that you want to live in. The output of that typically means a number of folks in that home are working to support to pay that loan, right? In the past, there might have been one primary breadwinner, right, who's paying the home, and there was maybe a smaller secondary source of income. But nowadays, like, you almost have to have two primary breadwinners to make your mortgage payments, right?
Yes.
Because of that, we're all away from home more. So the idea of outsourcing some of the things we've done in the past. So, look, roofing isn't something people typically do on their own. But if you think about things like landscaping, where somebody may have taken care of it on their own in the past, now they're outsourcing.
Yep.
Or with the advent of technology, IoT, and the internet, you bring in a contractor to help wire your home so all the networking works properly, right?
Home improvement.
So there is this piece that's kind of accelerating because there are other factors at play that are causing that to grow faster.
I love it. And that's a great segue to really some of the drivers of home services. And as you mentioned, single family homes really make up the bulk of this market, with 93 million homes currently. And these are stats in the US. So there is, single family homes are the most popular housing form, and they're driving the home services market due to their extensive maintenance needs. Because if you're, for instance, in a condo or assisted living, you typically have your own internal team. Or facilities team, or dedicated facilities organization. However, for single family, you're always relying on third-party contractors.
Even one thing to consider, though, in the condo or townhome example, HOAs are also aggregating in the space.
Right.
And those HOAs essentially farm out, or they bid, or they contract. There's a combination thereof. A lot of their services as well, because you're the HOA, you're paid a fee by the homeowners to maintain that property. So then they go out and they find contractors to do the work. So there's a lot going on right now.
I love it.
If you think about it, and look, most of us are in homes that we might not be selling because of interest rates for a long period of time. So the idea of investing in the home and making sure it's taken care of is more appeasable than going to buy a new one.
Exactly. And that's what the data is showing, that many homeowners are living in older homes, averaging over 40 years on average. So you have, on the high side, like 60, 70 years. Which really increases the demand for repairs and innovation, which typically, in the first, 4 to 5 decades, the maintenance cost is not as much. But as the home age, the maintenance costs rise significantly, especially if you have older demographics, who are living in the house. Like you said, they, rely a lot more on contractors for a lot of the work. And what we're also seeing is, like we mentioned, home ownership among aging demographic is boosting service spend, with each household spending an additional about $2,000 per member. So you can imagine, if you have 4 or 5 here in the Philippines, families stay together, you've got, up to 10 people living in the same household. So you've got, your average spend, rise to about $2,000 per member, which is huge if you consider, and there are tens of millions of homes. And what the data is showing, Geener, is unlike the fluctuating housing market, home services remain stable, relying on existing housing stock for consistent labor demand. So even if the real estate market is going up or down, doesn't matter. The home services is a stable industry. Did that play, would you say, a factor in your private equity wanting to go into the roofing market, like the stability of the market?
For sure. I mean, as I think about not only, why our sponsor wanted to come into the roofing space, but why I wanted to join the roofing space is, there is no shortage of roofs to be fixed in the U.S.
Right.
So there isn't. Drive through a neighborhood. I've learned this from a lot of the folks that I work with today. I've done a couple of ride-alongs, and by no means am I a roofer yet. But I've learned enough to walk around my neighborhood alone and just look at the roofs and say that one needs to be replaced and that one probably needs to be replaced. What that tells me, the opportunity is always there, right? Because the typical roof without weather damage is going to last somewhere between 10 and 20 years, depending on the shingle type and the warranty status and all that, right? Somewhere between 10 and 20 years. So we couldn't get to all the roofs in America to replace them or build new ones, even if we wanted to. So if we do a percentage of those every year, that just means next year there's a whole new subset of percentages to get done, right? And again, that doesn't even take into account that weather is unpredictable as it's become. And look, I won't get into the political debate on whether or not you believe in global warming. All I'm going to say is weather is becoming more unpredictable, right? And because of how unpredictable the weather is getting, that damage from wind, hail, snow, ice,
rain,
it causes material damage to those roofs. And we have to spend a lot of time with homeowners, their insurance carriers, navigating the process of getting those roofs replaced. Because as I said at the beginning, nobody wants a leaky roof in their house. It just causes so many other problems after that.
Absolutely. So it's an evergreen market, and it's a stable market. And what data shows is home improvement make up 80% of the market, followed by maintenance and emergency. However, there has been a trend in remodeling. There are some projections where remodeling is dropping post-COVID. And it's leveling and may become moderate by the end of the year. However, and what's interesting is that this is putting some pressure on home services companies to look for cost synergies, to look for optimization, to look for automation, look at offshoring. So it's interesting to see how the market is driving value creation. So I guess question to you, Geener, how does market trend drive value creation activity and inform your growth strategy?
So let me speak to RAFTR first.
Okay.
As I mentioned, there's no shortage of roofs. Unlike other home improvement places, the roof is on the outside of the home. So it's really highly dependent on kind of weather events, but also our ability to visit homeowners and get to them and help them understand if they have a problem or not. So we're a little unique, I would say, in this space, and maybe a little bit on, siding and windows kind of play into that a little bit too, because things on the outside of the house typically cause problems on the inside of the house if they're not set up properly, right? If you're talking about home improvement as it pertains to the inside of the house, I think there was kind of a spike. You can see it in your data during COVID because people were inside and they were fixing their homes, right? They're just like, if I got to live here and I don't know when I'm going to be able to be free to go out, I might as well make the place I live the nicest place to live, right? So they're not going to go re-improve something they just improved a number of years ago. So what happens is, like you said, there's an opportunity for those businesses to kind of step back and say to themselves, do I want to drive sales synergies by looking at other offerings inside the home, and taking my skilled labor and teaching them new skills, or do they have the operational or the skills to do something else, right? So if you were a carpenter, right? A carpenter company who does a lot of carpentry work, so doors, walls, puts up kind of the carpentry. Now do you want to get into plumbing, is an example, right? Maybe the answer is no, but you have to kind of explore other things you can potentially do, right? Because now that you're in the downturn. The other piece is, how do you leverage your business differently now because those sales have come down? And maybe they're going to be down to some new normal, right? So maybe your back office has to change, right? Because your business has come down by half, and maybe it's not going to recover for a while. And you just need to think about how to streamline those operations and bring the right level of people and the right people, frankly, into the fold to help you manage that.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's such a great insight about multi-product, because if you look at really the biggest platforms, the biggest private equity, I'm talking private equity, fast growth, double-digit growth, home services, they all are multi-brand franchisors, right? They're doing plumbing, they're doing pest control, they're doing HVAC, they're doing roofing, they're doing landscaping. So they're all multi-brand franchisors, national franchisors, who are really dominating the home services market. Starting with, I noticed Apex Service Partners, who is owned by Alpine Investors, who are probably one of the biggest HVAC acquirers. Probably came across these guys in previous life. So they acquire and partner with leading HVAC, plumbing, and electrical service companies. And there's a lot of emphasis, like you said, on operational support and resources for growth and success, and how can they help their franchisees or acquisitions, in that back office, sales, marketing, IT. And then there is Neighborly, which, if you remember, we covered them during our janitorial services Dealroom, and they are a leading home services franchisor, with a network of probably over 150 locations over the US, and they have multiple brands, and I'm always seeing their posts on LinkedIn, very, very active. And we'll go deeper into Neighborly on some of their latest acquisition in a quite an interesting segment of the market. And there's a Threshold Brands, who specialize in providing a diverse portfolio of franchise home services, including home cleaning, maintenance, and repair. Authority brand is also another player with focus on electrical and home cleaning. And then there's the Wrench Group, which it's a very interesting platform. And I was chatting with Robert, the CTO at Wrench Group, and it's a very interesting approach to the market. And hopefully we'll be talking to Robert on one of the upcoming episodes and talk about how the role of technology and how it plays in creating synergy among your acquisitions. But really, it was very hard for me to find a single product, a home service company that's really making a lot of grabbing a lot of market share in the market. So there's a lot of truth to what you said.
Home services are highly fragmented. They have been for a really long time, right? They're fragmented almost to the city level. Like you could come into a suburb of Chicago and find a home improvement company that just focuses on a couple of small suburban cities, and that's it. And they drive a ton of revenue because they don't really need to grow bigger than that. So the fragmentation in home services, it's extraordinary. I mean, I just came out of a different B2B industry where I thought fragmentation was high. Here, it's exponentially much higher, right? And then the ability to, I think over time, some of these and others, by the way, RAFTRx included in that, in that bucket. Over time, the ability to offer multiple offerings to a homeowner from one platform is also a strategy. So today you might have, roofing aggregators, landscaping aggregators, siding aggregators, janitorial aggregators, window aggregators, right? Eventually you'll start to see some of them come together. Maybe not now, maybe 5 years or so later, right? As they get big enough. Because then when you sit in front of a homeowner, it's a nice conversation, right? We can do your windows, take care of your landscaping, do your roof. We can be your provider of all these solutions. And by the way, residential HVAC is a huge area, right? And becoming much larger. So there's definitely a lot of fragmentation in the residential space, but a lot of opportunity and upside for both consolidation at a kind of end market level, like a specific type, but then over time for those companies to come together and offer homeowners value in aggregate.
I love it. The Amazon of home services, where you have everything on one platform. And the integration of technology and the on-demand services. So I was looking into the laundry market the other day, and home cleaning, and how it's becoming very Uber-like service, where and the infiltration of technology and on-demand service, the on-demand service is definitely starting to penetrate into home services, and we're seeing more and more of it. So it's interesting. It's the golden era. Would you say, Giner, it's the golden era of private equity, the next 3 to 5 years, where most really markets, are consolidating, and most, the good businesses, the attractive businesses will be sold in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I don't know. Golden era is a good term for sure. I think the opportunity is definitely golden, right? Because of the fragmentation and the amount of need, right? There is a tremendous amount of need in households for this, for a number of reasons, right? Roofing, it's weather, it's age, it's number of homes. For inside your home, it's, you want to live there and you want it to look nice and you want to feel comfortable, right? There's all this pent-up demand all over the place in a home. And so for that reason, and you have a bunch of companies working on it, there's a ton of opportunity for private equity to come in and drive value back to homeowners.
Absolutely. So switching over to, doubling down on looking at Neighborly, it's a pretty interesting company started back in the 80s. With the rainbow restoration, Mr. Rooter. You've probably seen their vans. Yeah.
I've used them.
So, it has a very good feel to it. I just enjoy their branding. So shout out to the CMO at Neighborly. The rebrand that they did, I think, was very effective. So they rebranded the platform 2017. And then they branched out, and they became a multi-brand, and were they able to, like you're seeing here, 39% increase in customer penetration in the first year. And then they got acquired lately by KKR. Yep. KKR, imagine, right? Some of your, the big boys are now going into home services. So it tells you something. When you have KKR going into home services, it's a big signal to the market that there's something here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, the amount of services they provide. Let's just use Mr. Rooter for a second, because it's one I resonate with because I've used them, right? If I have a backed up plumbing in my house, I I will, as a homeowner, I am whoever gets out here the fastest gets my business.
Right. Speed.
I'm actually not
speed.
thinking about cost becomes quite irrelevant at that point. Not totally irrelevant, but somewhat irrelevant, right? So, I mean, there's something definitely there that's very special with what they've done at Neighborly.
It's interesting. Speed, as the primary driver of your value proposition and demand. And you look at like Pizza Hut, right? When you're hungry, you need it. It's not about so much the cost, but it's like getting there in 30 minutes, right? When you have a plumbing problem and water is leaking, you're not thinking too much about the cost. You want, whoever is going to be there the fastest. So I love that.
Well, it's what you said a few minutes ago, right? It's a version of the Uber model, right? It's the Uber mentality of the world, right? When Uber's very busy, customers pay surge pricing, right? For better service, there's surge pricing, right? This isn't very different than that, right? There is when there's a need, like if I'm doing a casual remodel of a bathroom, then I'm going to be a little bit more like I'm going to get quotes. I want to understand it as a homeowner. I'm going to take my time. Maybe I go with the lowest price. Maybe I don't. It really depends on what my ask is. Right. But man, if I got a flood in my house, I'll be like, yeah, just get out here. No problem. I'm paying. Right. So there's something really special there.
Absolutely. And, recently, Neighborly jumped into the junk removal and hauling vertical by their acquisition of Junk King, which is an interesting market, and it really reinforces their position as a hub for home service. So you talk about the Amazon for home services. I think Neighborly is definitely making a headway into that positioning, and you're starting to see a lot of their technology integration there. And the acquisition also allows it an increase in their B2B jobs and the implementation. And you're seeing, like, for instance, they're implementing a centralized call center for their operation. I read an article about their operational improvement there. And Lisa Mary, the Junk King's CEO, had assumed now the role as the brand president. And while the co-founder Michael stayed on as an investor. So it's a pretty interesting market, the home services, and tens of millions of homes, aging population, evergreen stable market, seeing some of the big boys jumping into this vertical tells you that there's something here worth considering and looking into. And that's it for our Dealroom episode, the deep dive on home services. And we're looking to explore another vertical for the next episode. So would love to hear from you. Is there any specific episode you'd like us to dive into and break down and look at the trends, the numbers, the major acquirers? And if you're liking these episodes, make sure to give us a follow on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and share it around with your executives and with your team. Would love to grow this community of M&A practitioners and portfolio portco operators, and so we can all share what's working, what are the best practices, and tap into that collective genius that exists in this industry. Giner, any closing remarks on this episode?
No. Well, first, yes. To you and your families there, please be safe. Obviously, lots of thoughts and prayers for you guys. Second, maybe a little plug for the RAFTRx team. we just launched our brand, and we are in the home services. So feel free to take a look at us and reach out to me if you want to have a conversation about our business. I'm happy to talk about that and what we do and what kind of value we can bring. But really, what I'd say is to those of you out there, like, there's a little bit of an aha moment here, an epiphany of sort in this whole industry happening that I think will continue for a number of years, right? And for those companies out there that are like the independent entrepreneurs who are, looking at their business saying, okay, what do I do or how do I compete? I think for you, it's a decision of, if I'm going to compete, I got to be the best at what I do so I can compete with them, right? Being average isn't going to work anymore. For the larger companies, it's a little bit about, how to differentiate yourself, because as aggregation starts to occur, everybody kind of floods the pool and they're all the same. And, you need to think about how are you going to make your offering different than everybody else's and do it really, really well. Because if you don't, somebody else will, I guarantee you. And, your thesis of being the leader will get lost in the fact that someone will pass you by being different and better. So those are kind of my simple parting thoughts.
Absolutely, and congratulations on the launch of Rafter. I think one of your key differentiator is really the culture that you're building, and I'm looking at your team and all the content that they put out and the focus on building that camaraderie, the crews that you've got, really strong branding, really a strong sense of community, strong sense of team. And when you want to join a platform, a fast-growing platform, you want to make sure that people have your back, and not everyone is running in silos. So I'm excited to witness the RAFTRx growth journey. I'm excited to see all the service excellence and innovation that you're bringing from B2B into B2C. And I'm cheering for you, Giner, and for the RAFTRx team. So congratulations and best of luck.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. With that said, this is it. That's all. And once again, I'll see you on the next episode. God bless.